In terms of these magic baits, one that we haven't talked about that has been dominating professional angling and just angling as a whole is the jig-and-plastic minnow. And I want to say this was maybe, 2003, 2004. You and your brother Bill were dominating the Rainy Lake tournament, moping. Like, now it's called Damiki-rigging, and there's other versions of it. But give us some insight on like that discovery. I mean, that was really groundbreaking at the time.
At that point in time, we were fishing on Rainy Lake, and we were fishing these tournaments up there. And we were following the school of fishing. They were spawning in this back bay, and every day Willie and I would come out, and we're finding these fish moving farther and farther out. They're relatively shallow. These fish are 4 or 5 feet down, up along these banks, and then I don't know, we were out about the third or fourth day of practice, and we're fishing around this bullnose point. And my brother Bill says, man, I'm not kidding you. There was a fish like 4 feet below the boat. And he drops his bait down, just a straight minnow, soft plastic and a jig head, and he drops the line right out of sight. And he catches like a 3.5 pound bass. And I was like, wow, that's sort of interesting. I drop my line down and catch another one. I go, holy mackerel, what is this? We could proceed to catch like 3 or 4 more on the spot, and then we start identifying what's going on here. The fish were suspended really high in the water column. It goes up to like a 15-foot drop off to deeper water, like 30, 40 foot of water. And what these fish were feeding on are feeding on smelt in the system. And the walleyes, the big smallmouths, are feeding on this pelagic forage, this bait fish out in open water. We went to like the next 5 spots in a row, found the exact same situation where it drops to deeper water, and guess what? There's schools of fish sitting 4 to 5 feet down, suspended over these ledge drops. Their fish are waiting to go out and feed on these smelt. It's the same thing we were talking about, that depth, size, and speed, and what the fish are used to feeding on, and they're feeding on smelt in this case. And you go take this bait, and we're not even jigging it. I mean, these guys would come up, what are you guys doing? We're just sitting there like this, and you're just holding the bait like a lonely minnow sitting out there suspended in the water column. You know, since that point in time, I mean, a lot of people, Jeff Gustafson won the Bassmaster Classic a couple of years ago. I know that Brian Thrift developed this Damiki-rigging on some alternate reservoirs, but since that point in time, a lot of guys have, it's the big thing in angling today is using forward-facing sonar, fishing around these suspended fish, and casting and reeling these minnows through the water column in dominating tournaments. I mean, a lot of different tournaments.
The hardest thing was doing that for the first time was like a rod holder could often outfish somebody that was doing it for, because like you might get over the fish and then all of a sudden they all come up and then it's like they're fired up and it's just like double.
Yeah.
But if you were working the bait, like you'd see one come up, like you're ice fishing, you start like shaking it or jigging it, they'd be like,
No. I when you look at minnows and the way they're moving, they're not ripping around and they're not snapping up and down. You know, and what you're trying to do is resemble a lonely minnow just sitting there moving along, and it doesn't need that much action into it to make it look very, very lifelike, you know what I mean? And what we're using to trigger the fish into biting is the pause, where the bait is just sitting there. Depth, size, speed.